in some parts of America, winter is already here. Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota saw as much as 6 inches to 12 feet of snow, or 12 inches of snow this week. Wichita, Kansas saw the earliest snow in the state's history, and parts of the country are feeling cold temperatures earlier than usual. Denver had a record low for this time of the year, just 18 degrees. And Pat, this is just the beginning.
Well, I told you yesterday we were going to bring Joe Bastardi on to tell us about it. Joe Bastardi is chief forecaster for Weatherbill Analytics. Joe, you said very cogently we're going to have a rough winter, and lo and behold, it's happening. Tell us how you know it.
Well, first of all, I don't know it. Only God knows tomorrow, and we all know that. But on the other hand, if you're given, a talent, you're supposed to use it. And that's what I try to do. I'm just looking at the way the weather has been flowing over the last year to 2 years. One event has led to another. And so what we do at Weatherbell is we analyze what was going on in the past, match it up to the physical realities, and we'll make a forecast. For instance, we had a big forecast for a lot of rain in California and a stormy cold March and April in the eastern part of the United States. That signaled to us what the summer and the hurricane season was going to be like. So when the hurricane season in the summer turned out the way we thought, that then signals to us where the winter is going. And we'll see if we stay on this path. But from what I see, we've matched it up against, for instance, 2002, 2006, 2009, 2014. We have very similar patterns to that. Also similarities to some of the very cold winters back in the late 1970s. So we total all that up and we say, okay, big winters on the way. The other thing, Pat, is that the hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico was hugely important to our forecast. Not only was it usually important in predicting that and setting that up, but if you look at the correlation between October hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico and the following winter, those following winters are usually cold. Now, why is that? Because the same pattern globally that will lead to a lot of warmth September and October in the east and the hurricanes you see in the Gulf of Mexico, when you get that same pattern, because of the seasonal variation, it usually produces cold and stormy weather in much of the eastern and central United States in the winter. So all this flows together. If you look at the past, it gives you the foundation you stand on today to reach for tomorrow. You use the wonderful tools that science develops, and when that happens, you're able to try to put together a forecast. And we've had this forecast out since August, and for a cold, stormy winter, so I'm still confident of it right now.
All right, where are they going to hit the hardest, do you think, this winter? Is there any way of predicting that?
Well, our forecast map calls for the coldest and stormiest relative to averages to be over the eastern and southern part of the United States. If you folks can remember back to 2002 and 2009, 2010, of course, that was Snowmageddon. For instance, there are similarities in the overall pattern to that. Similar is not exactly the same, but what I do for a living, it's great. I love coming on here, but don't get me wrong. But all of it is behind the scenes with retail companies, salt companies, hedge funds, energy companies, wind and solar. We love everybody, right? Yeah. But what happens is if I can give them an advantage from August and say, look, guys, it looks like a cold, stormy winter, they get ready for it earlier, and then they're able to prepare. And that's how we can save people money.
You can save money and make money for your company, I hope. But let me ask you something. This whole thing about global warming and the heat blanket caused by fossil fuel and all that, is this a factor or not?
Well, the globe is warming. I believe it's cyclical in nature. Dr. William Gray, the late, great Dr. William Gray, was talking about this in the 1970s, that we were going to go through a warm period. He has an epic paper out about the meridional overturning circulation and the reason why the ocean's warm and cold. Look, 99.9% of the thermal energy of the planet is in the oceans. The atmosphere, and especially CO2, is not going to push the oceans around. So what happens is you get these cyclical warming periods, and a lot of it has to do with the sun. It's all the factors together. Now, Does man have something to do with it? Well, urban heat islands, building on the beach, putting things in the air. We may have something to do with it. But here's the question. How can you suddenly say that all of a sudden it's CO2 when in the entire history of the planet, it's always been natural? Whether you believe in the planet began whatever, the recorded record shows that the cyclical nature of the planet has always been natural. So you should be skeptical and question anything that's new. And we certainly do that. I don't shut out the other side of the argument. As a matter of fact, if you're the dumbest man in the room and you have humility, you look at all the arguments, figure out the strengths and weaknesses, try to bring them together, and then make the forecast. And the best thing I can do, Pat, is to be right, because if you're right, people will have to listen to you, and so that's what I try to do.
Well, one last question. Is there any possibility of a little ice age, something coming, a long-term cooling trend or not?
Well, I believe that there's a lot of heat stored in the ocean from the past 200 years of high sunspot activities. I get into argument with people on my side of the global warming issue. I say, you just can't get rid of that heat overnight. As a matter of fact, if you look, when we have low solar activity, an El Nino usually shows up. Now, why would that be? Because less radiation over the tropics weakens the easterlies. When the easterlies weaken in the tropical Pacific, the warm water appears in the El Nino regions. That pumps water vapor and energy into the air, and lo and behold, the earth warms a bit after that. So where is all that stored energy? See, before you go into anything, oh my goodness, the sun's falling asleep and this. Well, we just had 200 years where the sun was very active. Where is that energy stored? Well, obviously, if the oceans have 99.9% of the thermal capacity of the planet, it's probably stored in there, and you've got to get rid of it. You don't do that in 20 or 30 years. I wouldn't worry about the ice age right now.
Okay, Joe, thank you so much. And all right, I'll tell people again, order your oil now before the prices go up, okay?
Hey, Pat, one more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
If our winter forecast is right, you and I are going to be able to go skiing on Mount Trashmore down there.
I look forward to it. I get my skis all waxed and ready to go. All right. Joe Bastardi, isn't that interesting?
He said that we're going to get the worst of it.
That's
southeast.
Right. And get your skis ready for Mount Trashmore here in Virginia Beach. So that's funny.
Well, I love snow, so bring it. Bring it on, Joe. Bring it on.
I don't know if you wanted this, but up in Hot Springs, up on the mountain, it gets so cold that the whole top of the thing freezes. I mean, it's an ice sheet, and so you can't stand up. You have to climb up on your hands and knees to get up So it's going to be a rough winter. I say, don't sell your fur coat and get your oil and natural gas supplies now before the price goes up.